Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of How Do I Start This? My name is Celeste. If this is your first time joining me, welcome, welcome, welcome. We talk all things Black culture and all things hip hop on this channel. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so you can be updated when I drop new content. Okay, so I had a tweet go viral. I said, maybe I put the tweet in here. I asked, what's going on at Dreamville? And it really was just me like kind of responding to the comments made by Boss, who's an artist from Dreamville. And if you're not familiar with Dreamville, Dreamville is J. Cole's label conglomerate. He basically made an Instagram post talking to Ebro, basically questioning why Drake gets a lot of hate. And in the post, he questions, or he says that Drake is arguably one of the greatest writers of our generation. And so that kind of set the internet ablaze, and I just saw it like real quick, and so I just end up tweeting like, what's going on over there, and it ended up going viral. So I figured that I would just make a video about it. I think it's important that one, if you don't like long videos, you might just want to go ahead and click out of this, because I'm gonna be talking because I have a lot to say. And I think that I think I'm gonna touch on Drake being the greatest writer. I also want to touch on the whole culture thing, which Boss questioned in his response. He said, basically questioning how come Drake is not a part of the culture when he's elevated and pushed the culture forward. We can have dialogue about that. And then also at the end of his comment, which I don't see people talking about, and I think it's actually very important. He said that, we should be able to have dialogue with one another, healthy dialogue, even if we disagree, and it doesn't need to be considered rage baiting or trolling or tweeting or, all that good jazz. So the professor side of me kicked in on that last part. I was like, ooh, like that's actually true. So I definitely want to talk about that a little bit more. It's evident that the effects of the Kendrick and Drake battle, they're going to linger in hip hop culture for like what seems the rest of eternity. Like, we just can't get over it, like us as people, as fans. And it also seems like it's impacting artists now as well, right? Because you have this artist, basically questioning some of the narratives, which is not bad, right? Like, I think artists should be able to question narratives, but you actually see artists actually engaging in the conversation about the battle, whereas it seemed like before people were either silent, like if they weren't like just loudly pro Drake or loudly pro like Kendrick, people that were quiet just or people that were in the middle just seemed to be quiet. And it's like now we're kind of seeing more artists come out and talk about it. So the whole, is Drake the greatest writer of our generation? I'll start with that thing, that claim. I just want to say, contrary to my popular tweets, I'm not a Drake hater. I think I've developed like a little bit of a reputation of being a Drake hater, because now anytime I tweet about him, I get a whole bunch of trolls in my comments calling me all kinds of names. I don't even think some of the names I ain't never heard of before, but it's bad. I don't hate Drake. And there are actually Drake songs that I like. He's been famous since I was a freshman, a sophomore in high school. I'm 33, so that's like, what, over 15 years, like literally half of my life. Or I'll be 33, y'all. I age myself too quick. I'll be 33. But yeah, so he's been famous all of like half of my life, which means that especially a lot of his music, a lot of his early music were played at parties, were played on the radio. Like, he's literally part of half of my life's soundscape, right? So for me to sit up here and say, oh, I hate Drake, like, or for people to believe that I hate Drake, that's just not true. Now, I don't like his music now, right? I feel like his music doesn't really resonate with me now. It just, I don't know. It just doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me, for real. And for me, like, Nothing Was the Same was like the last Drake project where I was just like on the Drake train. Like, everything after that was like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm moving on to a different thing. But also, like, if you start listening to someone in high school and then, what was that, 2000 2006, 2007. And then When Nothing Was the Same come out 2013, 2013, 2014. I was getting ready to graduate college. Like, I'm not even the same person. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the same person as I was as a freshman in high school by the time I'm getting ready to graduate college. So I was just kind of evolving as a person, and like, I was just tapping into different soundscapes, and like the music just wasn't like, it was cool, but I wasn't checking for it, right? Now, as far as, so all that to say is like, I'm not a Drake hater. I can sit here and give an unbiased opinion on him. Do I think Drake has contributed a lot to our culture? I do. I think that he's definitely changed. He definitely changed the soundscape, because when he came in, like the whole rapping and singing thing, I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and say that he created it, because he definitely didn't. Shout out to Bone Thugs. And of course, like, even artists before Bone Thugs, right? So it's like the whole singing and rapping thing, that's not something like he made, but I do think it's something that he popularized. And I think it's something he made palatable to a larger audience in ways that it wasn't before. And if you disagree with me on that point, you can go ahead and let me know in the comment section if I'm missing something, or if I'm tweaking. I'm talking off the top of my head. So, but yeah, I think he definitely made it like more palatable to a larger audience. And when I say larger, I mean wider audiences. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And so I think that he came in and he, experimented with different sounds, and different sounds again were made available and more accessible to broader audiences. And so I think that he was innovative in that way. But the claim that he is the greatest writer, or arguably the greatest writer of our generation, I think it's kind of ridiculous. And it's kind of ridiculous because, one, there has been so many claims, not only of like, ghost. Well, yeah, I guess there's been so many claims of ghostwriting that, to the point, like, you don't even really know what Drake wrote and like what he didn't. You know what I mean? Like, I know that he has credits on like other artists' album. I think he, if I'm not mistaken, I think he wrote a portion of Heated, for Beyonce's Renaissance album, and then he, did his own house album. I think that he also wrote Unthinkable for Alicia Keys. So he definitely has writing credits on other artists' albums, right? But then there's also like I said, it's also, other accusations of him not even writing his best material, right? So like, not only the Quentin Miller thing where, he was, it was revealed that Quentin Miller was writing stuff for him. It was revealed, that The Weeknd wrote half of Take Care, and maybe half of Take Care is dramatic, but it is known that The Weeknd contributed heavily to that album. And then, with all the reference tracks that have been exposed, it's just like, how can we say he's the greatest writer when we don't even truly know what he's written? Like, his whole body of work has literally come into question within the last 5 years. And so I think Boz saying that he's arguably the greatest writer of our generation, it doesn't feel, I don't know, it just don't feel like it almost feels delusional. Like, it just feels like, okay, like, you can feel however you want to feel. Like, that's his opinion. He can feel that Drake is, and probably as an artist, he's going to have a different perspective than me as a consumer of music, right? But like, it just doesn't make sense. I just don't understand. Like, and also, if we're putting Drake in the rapper category, right, the MC category, he's already disqualified from that alone, because you can't be the greatest MC or the greatest rapper if you're not even writing your rhymes, right? You know, as a consumer, like, and maybe it doesn't matter to the average consumer. I don't think it matters to the average consumer, but like me, I'm a cultural studies scholar. I'm into hip hop heavy, so like I'm a hip hop head, so it's gonna matter a little bit more or different. It's gonna matter differently to me than like the average fan or whatever. But I just think for me, I think claiming that he is the greatest writer of our generation when we don't even really know what he wrote. I think there was an incident with DJ Academics. I think he went on camera and said like if a reference track ever came out about Mob Ties, he would be like kind of sick to his stomach because Mob Ties was his favorite song. And then a reference track ended up coming out for Mob Ties, and it was written by Vori. And low-key, I like Vori's version better. I wish Vori would have been able to like put that on Spotify or something. But when that reference track came out, I'm like, oh, Vori's actually, it sounds like his was better, right? Still, how Academics felt about Mob Ties is kind of how I feel about like Do Not Disturb. I think Do Not Disturb is like one of Drake's greatest song, if not the greatest. It's definitely one of my favorite. But now I don't even know like if he wrote it. So I don't know. I think the whole claim that he is the greatest writer of our generation, I hate to say this, but it does come off as pandering. Like it just comes off as pandering, and it doesn't look good from the Dreamville side because like his authenticity has been in question this last year and a half. Like that's been about that's been the questions about the whole battle. Like, who is Drake? You know, what has he done? What's real? What's true? You know, that's like really been like kind of I would say the narrative that's been plaguing him for the last year. And so for Boss to come out and say, well, oh, actually, he's the most authentic person, it's just like, I mean, he could feel like that. He might know him personally, but then it's like, there's no way that you're going to expect the rest of us to believe that. Not even just from the ghostwriting perspective, but there's also been countless instances where he just doesn't, Drake himself doesn't come off as authentic. So I just think that I don't know. I just think that it's weird. Like, and it's like, I don't know. Like I said, Boss is able to feel how he wants to feel, but like he just had to know that this was going to set the internet ablaze. Like I don't think that you comment to Ebro of all people that Drake is I can't even imagine how many rappers and artists that Ebro has interviewed, but like to comment that Drake is the greatest writer of our generation to Ebro, like I think he had to know that this was going to set the internet ablaze. And I think he even had I think he even followed up with a comment like, man, I didn't know it was gonna like go viral like this. But it's like, yeah, because you're basically saying that he's the greatest at something when we know that, like, it's like saying Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player ever, but we also know like Barry Bonds was like caught in a steroids situation, so it's like all his achievements were kind of like had asterisks on them or whatever the case may be. Yeah, so that's that part. And y'all can debate in the comments, you know, whether you think Drake is the greatest artist or greatest writer of our generation. I mean, I would argue that Kendrick is the greatest writer of our generation. He literally won an award for writing, right? The Pulitzer Prize. Like literally that's the highest award you can receive for writing. And I'm not trying to get into, you know, awards and numbers and sales because I know that can go a different direction, but I would just like to know Boss's criteria. Like you're evaluating him as the greatest writer based on what? Like what? Like I actually think I would like to hear Boss's opinion on that more, but I know he probably won't say anything now because he didn't anticipate it going all over the place like this. The second part of Boss asking Ebro, well, like, why is Drake getting all this hate? And he's actually pushed the culture forward, and he's helped Afrobeats artists and Jamaican dancehall artists and rappers kind of be at the forefront of our culture. And it's just like, has he though? Or has he like taken people's sound and used it for his own benefit, right? Like, people were on Twitter bringing up I Love McConan, you know, and I'm just using him as an example. Like, I Love McConan, Block Boy JB, like, you know, he just released a song with Central C where he's doing like his whole Jamaican, London, British, whatever the type accent thing, right? And so it's like, I think you could make the argument that he has pushed a whole bunch of different cultures to the forefront. But again, from my perspective, it doesn't seem authentic. Like, it seems like I'm just trying to like tap into something to keep my streak hot, right? And I say that because yes, he taps into these sounds and pushes new sounds to the forefront, but it's not like those sounds then take on like a life of their own and other artists are able to like profit from those sounds, right? It's not like, I'm trying to think of a dancehall artist. I'm gonna use Spice as an example, just because she's super successful, but I'm just use her as an example. It's not like Drake collaborated with Spice and then Spice was able to like, you know, garner a mainstream audience and then bring up other artists behind. Like, it's not like that. It's like he taps into the sound and then like the sound kind of fades away. It doesn't fade away, but it fades away in the relationship and where he's connected to it as he moves on to the next sound, right? So it's not like dance hall and Afro beats and British rap are thriving because of, you know, Drake coming into those spaces. I think it's getting recognition because it's coming into those spaces, but it's not thriving because he's coming into those spaces. I would say that's unfair to the artists that have been in those spaces for decades, cultivating a scene and putting in work, right? Like, I'll use London as an example. I've been following like London and grime since I was in high school, way before Drake ever like tapped into that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about Wretch 32, SAS, Lady Lee Shore. You know what I mean? These are just some off the top of my head. Black the Ripper, rest in peace, right? And so artists in London were doing, I'm thinking of Devlin, that's coming to my head too, like Chip, formerly known as Chipmunk, right? There's a whole bunch of artists cultivating the scene in London way before Drake ever stepped foot in there, right? So I think it's unfair to say that he's pushing new sounds to the forefront when he's really just coming into these spaces and like kind of just piggybacking off of the work that these artists have already done. And I would say that social media is actually the reason that a lot of these soundscapes are coming to the forefront and into the mainstream, because now we're able to see and hear different cultures and different types of music at a way more rapid speed in comparison to like before social media, where you would kind of just like, you know, isolate it to your area, right? But now with the phone, you have access to cultures all over the world, right? And that's another video of how good and bad that can be, right? But I think giving him credit when there have been people in each of these genres like building for decades, saying that he pushed them to the forefront is like, no, they pushed themselves and then he came in, and then it's just like, you know, I think it's just like a matter of, I don't want to say coincidence, but coincidence, right? That's just my opinion. Y'all can debate me in the comments whether you think I'm tweaking or whatever the case. Does he, you know, is it fair that he receives this hate? And this actually kind of goes along with what Drake was actually saying on stage the other night. I tweeted about that too, and it went viral. You know, he basically went on stage and was like, you know, I'm a nice person. I got here by being a nice person. I never did nothing snaky to nobody. Like, my karma is good. And it's like, there's literally documented evidence of like him not being a nice person, you know, to random people, right? Like, people were bringing up how he like dissed Esperanza Spalding for no reason. I brought up how he dissed Meg for no reason. He constantly like dissing and taunting Rihanna and ASAP Rocky, right? Like, he has a long list of just sneak dissing people constantly. And so Boss saying, well, why does he get hate? It's like, dude, like, you get the energy that you put out. And it's like, we've watched him for the last 15 years sow contempt and like hate for different people, right? Whether it was like direct hate or indirect hate, like we watched him do it. So to be surprised that he's like reaping the benefits of all of that, I don't know. I just think it's kind of crazy. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. That's why I was reading through this comment. I'm just like, is this serious? Because like, or does Boss know something that we don't? Because it just feels like, it just feels like you can't be serious right now. Okay, so the one thing I also do want to talk about is Boss's comments about like, you know, we should be able to have healthy dialogue and healthy conversation between one another in hip hop, because he mentioned that him and Ebro have conversations all the time, and that's actually something that I do teach my students. That's like the thing I tell them day one is like, we're not all going to agree with each other, and I'm not trying to force you all to agree with each other. But the thing that I want you to take away from my class is to be able to talk across your differences and be able to communicate and still find community, even with people who you don't agree with or are different from you, you know, whatever the case may be, because that's just the real world, right? Like, we all have to live and thrive in this world, even when we don't agree with each other. So I think that what I do want to point out is I do think that Boss is right in that regard. I think that in hip hop, we should be able to have healthy conversations, especially when we don't agree with one another. And that's something that I've been trying to practice too on Twitter, like just on Twitter. But I actually do that in like my real life. Like if I don't agree with you, like it's cool, like it's fine. But I think the issue as to why, you know, he may, and a lot of us may be feeling like a lot of the hip hop commentary is rage bait or trolling or, you know, just engagement farming, is because a lot of times it seems like the conversations are being had in bad faith, right? And people are not starting from truth, right? You know, not starting from a point of like honesty, like and being committed to like learning, right? A lot of times it seems like people come into the conversation with their own perspective already and not even trying to like hear what you actually have to say. And so I think that is why, you know, we have engagement farming and rage baiting and trolling and not just in hip hop but social media culture, because people, you know, are already coming into it with their own like viewpoint. But I think as far as hip hop is concerned, I think the reason that we're also having like trouble within hip hop spaces is because it often seems like there's a movement to erase hip hop history, right? It often seems like there's a movement to minimize the culture's beginnings and where it come from, right? And the most famous example of this is all this numbers talk that's happening on social media. Every time somebody releases an album, is it gonna go #1? Is it gonna sell at least 100K the first week? Is it gonna stay on the chart for all 52 weeks? Just like a whole bunch of numerical metrics used to, and mostly by stands, used by stands to kind of like pump up their artists and actually like make themselves feel good, which is again is a whole nother video. But I think that because we're in that period in hip hop where stan culture is prevalent and numbers are used to validate an artist's success, a lot of times what happens is in these conversations, people are minimizing, you know, the work and the achievements of our hip hop pioneers, both who were able to achieve large amounts of success and also those who weren't, right? And so I think that frustrates people. It definitely frustrates me as an African American studies professor, right? Because I'm huge on preserving history, right? Especially Black history, because there's been concerted efforts. There's still concerted efforts right now to erase that, you know? And so I think that when you come into the conversation, one, not knowing the facts, and two, not being willing to like learn the facts even when they're presented to you, and not wanting and not having a respect for the history and the people in the genre that came before whoever your favorite artist is, I think that creates a an uneven ground for conversation, and that's why a lot of conversations are being had in bad faith. That's why a lot of conversations are turning into like an insult fest. Like, it's just bad because people are not communicating on the same level with the same, you know, intentions. And yeah, so I think that's I think Boss has a really good point on that regard. But I think that in order for us to have better hip-hop conversation, we need to start respecting the history and respecting the culture and the essence of where this came from. And I know I keep saying culture and essence, and it's gonna sound like played out, but we really do need to respect that. And when someone is, and maybe not everybody respects the culture and the essence, but I don't know, that kind of makes me feel like hip-hop needs like different, like something, like, because everybody's not communicating in the same regard. And so I think that, yeah, but I ultimately I think that if we can all get on the same page and just say, hey, as a culture, whether you're a fan of Travis Scott or whether you're a fan of Kendrick Lamar, whether you're a fan of Boss or J. Cole, JID or Joey Badass, if we can all just get on the same page and say, hey, we're going to respect the history and the culture of this, I think that that would actually make the conversations a lot better. But because we're not doing that, the conversations are going to be ridiculous or rage-filled, or, you know, what feels like trolling, because you have people trying to defend their viewpoint and defend the history of this. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section about that. I actually think I'm just gonna move on to what I really want to talk about, and it's like what is going on at Dreamville. I am curious as to why, like, it seems like Dreamville has made it like a consistent effort to like make sure they state that they are like firmly in the middle between both the Kendrick and the Drake climate that we're in right now. I just think that's very interesting. I think I'm surprised because, like, you would think that with Dreamville, they're like home of the like real lyricists. There's like a lot of dope lyricists. They got JID, they got J. Cole, they got Boss, you know, Earth Gang. All of them can actually spit, right? All of them are actual like lyricists, right? And so I think some people kind of looked at them as like a like sort of like in a TDE type of thing, like. We looked at them, at least I kind of looked at them that way. And so in an era where we're championing lyricism and getting back to the essence, I just find it interesting that they're like wanting to take a neutral approach and just kind of like, we saw with J. Cole with the whole Port Antonio, just like kind of remind us like, hey, Drake, you'll always be my friend, you'll always be my bro. And then today we see Boss come out and kind of defend Drake too. And it's just like, they can do that, that's fine, like that's their personal opinion. It's just kind of surprising, like it just, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me. Yeah, and I think it's me personally, I don't know nothing about nothing, but I do think it's a lot of stuff that has happened behind the scenes that have made people move and act the way that they are. Things we'll never know, things that, you know, things that may come out. It just feels weird that they would do this at a time where like JID's album is scheduled to come out next week. Dreamville already has this like, they've kind of been subject to Twitter jokes for the last year as well. Especially J. Cole, like the memes that I've seen, like, you know, he's still a phenomenal rapper. So you would think that they would just kind of like want to just like, you know, use this time to like actually highlight their lyricists, but it just seems like they consistently put themselves in a position to where now we're discussing like, well, what's going on at Dreamville? Why is Dreamville not, you know, what's going, like, you know, I just don't think that it helps the artist. I don't know, like, if what I'm saying makes sense, but that's basically why I tweeted, like, what's going on at Dreamville, because I'm just like, y'all should be, like, happy that lyricism is being, you know, championed, and then y'all, like, are kind of, like, advocating for someone who essentially kind of made it difficult for like real lyricists to thrive. And we can talk about that in the next video. But yeah, this is just basically me rambling for 30 minutes. I'm gonna stop the video here. I hope I was able to like articulate myself in a clear way, but if not, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Is there anything that I'm tweaking on? Is there anything that you need clarification on? Yeah, but I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.